Hey guys, and welcome to a new live digital classroom. Now this is a Q&A version, so that means that I will answer some questions that we got via the email and of course show you one of our favorite tips for today. So let me see where we have the questions. Okay, so one of the questions is, Frank, how do you get your models? Well, one of the things that I can tell you about models is you have to be careful where you get your models from. If you, for example, go through a model agency, be prepared to pay money, but the models will always show up. If you go online, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. You have these websites like Model Mayhem and in the Netherlands Model Zone. The problem is that if you book a model via those sites, you never know if they're really going to show up. Now, I know a lot of you guys are now thinking like, Frank, we know exactly what you mean. We have the same problem. We had a model, she was coming in and, well, she never came, right? So we all experienced that. I kid you not, when we did our casting call for new glamour models, we had at least 3 models who just didn't show up for their test shoot. I know, it's ridiculous. You know, you make an appointment with a model, it's a paid gig, and they just don't show up. So imagine being there with a whole team, like a stylist, a makeup artist, your client, and your model comes in and, well, she doesn't. So what do? So this is where I can actually give you a tip. If you want to make sure that your model shows up, and this sounds very, very cruel, but let's be honest, it's the only way to make sure. Let them pay in advance, like for example 25 bucks or 25 euros. They pay the money to you and you tell them that as soon as they show up on the gig, they get the money back. Now, this will mean if she doesn't show up, you have 25 euros or $25 or whatever. So that sounds like, okay, now I've got money, but why do I need the money? It's not about the money, it's about that motivation for the model to show up. And it's just a very simple tip for that. The other thing what we always do during workshops is we always try to book at least 3 models. And I always calculated 1 or 2 don't show up, so in the end I hope to end up with 1. Now if you want to make absolutely sure that your model shows up, go to a model agency. You pay a little bit more or a lot of extra money, but you know at least the model will show up. So this is something that I always do. Now, where do you find the models that, for example, we use? Now, most of the models we scout ourselves. We have, for example, once a year or once every 2 years, we have a competition called Poldermodel, where we actually ask models or girls from our neighborhood to sign up and they get a catwalk training. It's just a very nice day for them. And in the end, we have a catwalk show and we will decide which model will be fit for our workshops or assignments, and we call them the Poldermodel. So that's one way. The other thing is just ask the people around you. We all have sisters or cousins or whatever, male models, female models, it doesn't matter. Just ask the people around you. There's so many interesting people, but you have to see it. So that's my tip about getting models. I also have another tip, but first I want to tell you something about Digital Classroom. Now, as you all know from the longer episodes, Digital Classroom has been a dream for me for years. And thanks to 2 companies, we are able to broadcast this live for you guys. And one of these companies is Rogue Expo Imaging, the other one is BenQ. Now, I tell you BenQ because I actually have another question here about monitors. And the question is, Frank, there are so many brands of monitors out there. And a lot of people go for the big brands like ISO. Why did you go for BenQ? The reason is very simple, guys. You have to realize that I teach a lot of workshops. It's my main form of work, workshops, education. Now, I can probably get an ISO. You know, I pay for the ISO and it's a lot of money, but I'm very happy with my ISO. But I also have to show you guys what a great monitor is. And I know that a lot of you guys don't have budgets for ISOs. So what do? You spend your money on an sRGB monitor. And at one point during, I think it was the photography show in England, I met up with BenQ and I saw their new line of monitors. At that point they only had the 24-inch. And so behind the scenes they were going like, there will be a 27-inch. Because I said, you know, I'm used to a 27-inch and I'll go back to a 24. And they sent me this 24-inch monitor. And guys, I have to be very honest with you guys. I wouldn't tell you buy a BenQ if I don't believe in the brand. So the 24-inch monitor was very, very cool. And now they recently released a 27-inch monitor, and it's a monitor, I believe in Europe it's sold for $6.99. Adobe RGB, you get the hood for free, and it's a hardware calibratable monitor. So it's very, very cool stuff. So answering the question, how did I end up with BenQ? Very simple. I was thinking about you guys, my students, the attendees of my workshops, and you, the viewers. If you don't have a lot of money to spend on a monitor, but you still want top-notch quality, and this is what you want, because this is your work, so make sure that you have a good monitor. And with the BenQ, it's actually possible to create it for not so much money. So we actually made a clip for BenQ for the promo of that monitor, and I want to show you that clip. And again, this is for the 24-inch. There's also now a 27-inch, and that's the one I'm looking at now. So if you see me looking like this, I'm actually looking at my dash to make sure that I can switch cameras for you guys. So I want to show you the promo for the 24-inch BenQ. Hey guys, my name is Frank Doorhof, and I'm a fashion celebrity photographer based in the Netherlands. For me, photography is more than just work. It's my passion. It's what I love to do. It's what I like to do every day. Now, when you do photography, you're actually creating images. You're making sure that your vision gets on that digital sensor. Now, creating that vision isn't just pressing the shutter. It's so much more. To create an image is a whole process. It's from lighting, styling, coaching your model. Everything has to work together. And then when you have that final shot, the shot that really does the work, how do you get to the real final image, the one you see online, the one you see in print or in magazines? That's where you start doing retouching. Now for me as a photographer, it's important that my images look correctly in the publications we use. So when I retouch, I want to see the best image quality possible. Now, buying a monitor is very difficult because there are so many monitor brands out there. And recently we started testing the new BenQ monitors. And I can tell you guys, what BenQ is doing at the moment, it's awesome. So check out their monitors. They have this new line of Adobe RGB compatible monitors. You can calibrate the monitors, which in my opinion is one of the most important things. Because, well, you get them all with this sheet like they're calibrated from the factory. But that isn't true, because every computer is different, every video card is different, every driver is different, and of course your monitor degrades over time. So you have to recalibrate them every time. And the BenQ monitors, they have this built-in hardware calibration option, where you can use your analyzer and their software to create the perfect calibration. But most of all, I like the BenQs for their 99% Adobe RGB compatibility. Because now I can see the color space that I want. I don't want to see sRGB, the small color space. I want to see the Adobe RGB color space. So, if you care about your photography, if you want your images to look exactly the way that you want, check out the new BenQ series monitors. I'm sure you're gonna like it, because I like them, and I'm very picky about my colors. So check out BenQ and the new series of monitors. So as you can see, a pretty cool monitor, and again, the 27-inch for $6.99, that's just a great deal. Now, talking about colors, right? So why should I get an Adobe RGB monitor? Well, very simple, the colors are much broader, but besides that, you just get a better image quality. And that brings us to the next question. Frank, you shoot a lot with Capture One. You use Capture One as your RAW developer. Now, how about the Colorchecker from X-rite? Because I'm a big advocate of the Colorchecker, right? So how do I incorporate that in my workflow? Well, to be totally honest with you guys, the profiling that Capture One uses is pretty cool. It's actually very, very good. I'm shooting the Sony A7RII at the moment, and even that profile is very, very good. If I compare it to the profile that's delivered with Lightroom, Capture One is a lot better. So if my RAW developer would be Lightroom, the Colorchecker really makes sense. It's a great tool to get most accurate colors. In Capture One, it's not supported because it only supports ICC profiling, and the Colorchecker is actually DCP, meaning it works with Adobe products. Now, why do I still promote the Colorchecker and why do I still use the Colorchecker for certain shots? That's very simple to explain. Sometimes a client wants the absolute best quality in color because you're doing, for example, a product shot or a dress or whatever. You want that color to be absolutely perfect. That's when I will actually use Lightroom as my raw converter. Now, if I'm working free work or I'm doing workshops and that kind of stuff, that's when I use Capture One, and I still shoot the Colorchecker just to be sure, but I only use one of the gray patches to get my color cast correct, right? So I use it as some sort of a white balance card, let's call it that. And why do I still shoot the Colorchecker? Very simple. If later on I think, you know what, I want this shot to be color accurate, then I can still go into Lightroom, create a profile, and at that point have perfect colors. So I'm still a big advocate of the Colorchecker, but I just hope that software packages like Capture One and DxO will actually start supporting it. But at this point, it's Lightroom. And again, if you want accurate colors, make sure you get the Colorchecker passport. Now, the other questions I get is a lot about tethering. Now, I've been on a quest, we'll call it a quest, to get my Sony A7RII, which I dearly love, great camera, to shoot tethered wirelessly. Now, why wirelessly? Very, very simple. For example, on Friday, we're doing a castle workshop in Amazonia. Great location, but we're going to move around a lot. Now, when you have a camera and you have constantly a cable connected, you have your laptop on a stand, it's a lot of work to drag that around the castle. So what I would love to do is shoot tethered, but not with a wire, wirelessly. So we tried the TP-Link, we tried, I believe, the iFi cards, which we're still waiting for a new one because the one I have is very unstable, and they're going to send me a new one, so let's see if that one works out. But the weird and the frustrating part was Sony has a great app inside their camera, and it's actually called Smart Remote. Now, what Smart Remote does, it makes sure that you get a wireless transmission to an iPad, iPad Pro, iPhone, or even when you use QSLR dashboard, you can get it on your computer. And it works flawlessly. It sends over 2 megapixels files or the original ones. It stores everything else on the card. With the new version 4, you actually have burst mode. You can do whatever you want. It's awesome. It works flawlessly. There's only one problem with the A7RII. The EVF stays black. Now, I just went to Camera Nu because I was frustrated with everything. It didn't work, nothing worked, whatever I tried. I was always this close, but there was one point not working. So if we have one thing working, something else didn't work. And I know you Canon and Nikon's guys are now going like, yeah, but we have Cam Ranger. I know, and it's an awesome product, but I'm shooting Sony and we don't have a Cam Ranger solution. Cam Ranger, if you're listening, work on that Sony solution. So I was going like, okay, how do I solve the problem with my EVF going black and my LCD working? And then it just hit me. When we started doing video with DSLRs, what was the first thing you did? On your back of your camera, you mounted the so-called loop. Now, why did you mount the loop? Because if you shoot video like this, you don't have an extra point on your face, meaning your camera will be a little bit shaky. Now, I just thought like, why not go to our friends at Camera Nu? And what I bought is a very cheap, and the brand is actually, I will show you the brand. It's a Cineroid, and it's a 3-inch LCD loop. And do not face the eye cup directly into the sun, sure. And it's really cool. It's only 60 bucks. So what you do is you place this little mounting box on your LCD. You take out the loop, and let me place it on. And oops, normally that doesn't happen. And there you go. It looks a little bit tall, large. But this works flawlessly. It's a 3 times, bigger. And you can just very easily now shoot. And you still have the idea that you're shooting with an EVF, so you don't have any flare on your display. And now I can finally shoot wireless tethered. So for 60 bucks, until Sony finally solves the problem on the A7RII where the EVF goes black, I can now shoot wirelessly into my iPad and soon the iPad Pro and of course the iPhone. Now another question was, Frank, I recently you recently wrote a blog post about the iPad Pro. Are you seriously considering buying the iPad Pro because it doesn't run, let me see, full apps, full software, he probably means. And if you look at the Surface Book from Microsoft, that does everything. I don't want to go into that conversation, but I still will. Because there's one thing that a lot of people don't realize. This whole Mac PC stuff and Android and iPhone stuff, guys, this is ridiculous. And I will tell you why. And I hope this will make some people laugh and other people actually realize how stupid it is that this whole discussion is going on. If I run a Mac, a full-blown Mac, most of my software will also run on a PC. But not all software. And I'm using Macs in the studio, and Anna is using a Mac, we have MacBook Pros. To have a Windows computer in there, it works, absolutely works. But if you look at all the reviews, you will see that to have a full-blown touch-abled Photoshop, it still won't work on a Surface Pro. You still need a keyboard. The reason why I will go for the iPad Pro is I know the limitations. Photoshop will not run on an iPad Pro. However, when I'm shooting tethered, I can still shoot tethered into the iPad Pro. When I'm using Lightroom Mobile, I can do all my pre-retouches on the iPad Pro. When I'm shooting with my medium format camera in the studio, it still runs Capture Pilot, which means my students can look on my iPad Pro and see all the images coming in. It's all about apps. When you have an iPhone, you have certain apps. When you have an iPad, you have certain apps. And those talk together, and they talk together perfectly with a Mac. If you buy a Surface Pro, it's an awesome product if you're using Windows. If you're a designer and you want to have that absolute most perfect pen control, if I now look at the reviews, most reviews actually say, well, the pen control on the iPad Pro is better. So the Surface Book, which, by the way, I really, when I saw it, I was going like, wow, this is amazing. It's one of the most nicest laptops I ever saw for PC. But it's still, I think, aimed at the business market. And it's aimed at touch display. But you still need a keyboard for stuff like Photoshop or Premiere. Try to do Premiere with only the stylus. It doesn't work. But if you do iMovie on the iPad Pro, you can edit 4K video. And of course, you can't do what Final Cut Pro X can or Premiere. But as soon as you're home, you just connect it to your computer and you can do the final touch-up in your Mac system or PC, whatever you want. So it's all about the apps you run, it's about the environment you're working in. And of course, I would love to see a full-blown touch-compatible macOS on an iPad Pro. That would be awesome. But I also think that because the apps are written for the iPad Pro, they actually take total control over the iPad Pro's hardware and will actually be very, very fast. So, and I got a lot of emails about it. That's why I do it now in Digital Classroom Q&A, because I do want to make that clear. I'm not a PC fanboy or an Apple fanboy. It's just we use Apples over here, and just to have that same infrastructure just makes way more sense than going, for example, to a Surface Pro. And I think that's all the questions. Let's see, we have one more, but that's about retouching, and we'll do that in a later version. So I want to thank you very much for watching. And we'll see you next time. And remember, if you want a good monitor, check out BenQ. And if you're all about small flash and that kind of stuff, and that can happen during live, so we're going to turn that one off. And make sure that you also check out BenQ for the monitors and Rogue Expo Imaging for all your small flash stuff. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time during Digital Classroom.